It's been a wild year, guys. Like, in 1 year's time, you will be a very different person to who you are today. For sure. Well, a warm welcome to this video. My name is Dr. Sil. I'm a junior doctor working in Sydney, Australia. And this video, I guess it's kind of for myself a year ago, but more pragmatically, it's for any medical student who will be starting as an intern this year. And by the way, congratulations. It also serves as maybe an interesting video for those who are interested in the experience that interns go through and what my year as an intern has been like in 2021. It is now 2022, so Happy New Year, everyone. This won't be a heavily edited video. This is just a kind of reflective discussion that's structured, and I just kind of wanted to have a transparent, open stream of consciousness-ish sharing of thoughts with people who might be interested. This has, I guess I'll start with a bit of structure. I'll start by just giving an overview of what my year has been like and talk about the different terms that I've done. I'll also reflect about how I feel now compared to how I felt at the start of the year of 2021, and the different things that have changed in how I approach work, and reflect on the year as a whole, and then I'll talk about advice. And the advice, if you want to just skip ahead to that because you're interested in what you can get out of the video, please feel free to do that. And I'll leave there's a lot of really good tips that I've kind of accumulated from other people and from myself, and a lot of feedback that I've received that I'm going to kind of try and put into this video. It might be a bit of a longer video, sorry about that. Just listen to it on 2x speed if you like. That's probably tip number one. So in terms of how my year has been, I've been very fortunate as an intern because essentially my terms have increased in difficulty. And yes, not all terms are equal in difficulty. There are some terms that are harder work, higher workload than others, but my terms have kind of increased in difficulty as my skills have improved. And so I wouldn't say I'm highly skilled by any measure, but as my skills improved over the year and as I could gain more and more independence, I've had harder and harder terms that are more challenging, so that essentially I haven't been too overwhelmed. It's impossible to not be overwhelmed at all in internship. It's a very overwhelming year. And a bit of dark humor and a bit of laughing is a good way to process all the crap you go through. But in terms of my first term, I started off with mental health rehab, which is a great first term to do because you learn a little bit about how the hospital system operates. Mental health rehab is full of medically stable patients who are working on their mental health to return to society. So it's psychosis, it's mood disorders, and it's really wonderful because you often see a lot of happy stories of people who were really deconditioned because of and debilitated because of their mental illness, and with the right medications and right psychological input, they're now at a point where they can start working, which is very exciting, or at least just living independently, which is a great step for many people. So that was a really cool term to start with. The negative aspect of starting on such a term where everyone's medically stable is that you don't see much medical stuff, which you need to see. And so when you do eventually see all the medical things like a pneumonia or fevers of unknown origin and blah, 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 it's later in the year where people don't have as much tolerance of you making silly mistakes. When you start out an internship, everyone expects you to make mistakes. The best thing about internship, at least in Australia, is that people have very low expectations. It's pretty good, so that there's a lot of support. And sometimes I come across as very confident, the way I speak, and I don't know where that comes from, but I always when people people have mentioned that, seniors have been oh, you're very confident in how you speak, it's really good. And I always have to remind them, do not be falsely reassured by my tone of voice. Treat me like a baby, treat me like a medical student kind of thing, because I don't want them to miss anything. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. Back to mental health rehab. It was a great first term. The next term I did was trauma surgery. Yeah, trauma. So trauma surgery was great. I'm not surgically inclined. I wish I was. I think it's a beautiful thing to do. I just don't think it's worth the lifestyle cost. So it's not like a very surgically heavy term. You don't spend much time in theatres or anything, but it gives you a good overview of all the different specialties, because you act as a coordinator of specialties essentially. If someone gets in a car crash and they have chest injuries and a limb injury and a broken bone, then you need vascular, orthopedics, cardiothoracics, and in trauma you'll be, as an intern, involved in all those discussions and to the other teams. So it's good for an overview of the different specialities in surgery. The good thing about these first 2 terms for me personally was that there was almost always a registrar around, so I had really good support. Like whenever there was a question I didn't know, I could always just kind of look to my right or look to my left and be like, oh, by the way, like, how do you order a CT angiogram of the head or something? Like, because there's a lot of like little things that you need help with. So it was really good, those first 2 terms. Then I jumped into aged care. I got confused as to which order I did it. And aged care was more challenging still. So they're starting to get a bit harder every term, because aged care was just me and a registrar. So it's a team of 2 with, 20 patients sometimes. So it's like high workload and not a big team. And yeah, and a lot of people who were really unwell. Like, aged care is a great medical term to do if you can, because you see lots of different pathologies. Like, it's not just chest pathology, it's not just abdominal pathology, it's not just medical issues, sometimes it's surgical issues. And the key thing that is important to learn, which I still need a lot of work, is limits of care. It's knowing when to not treat people, and the discussions with the family around that. These are very important things to get the skills to do, and I still don't have those skills, but it's good to just start getting exposed to that early, because talking about end of life with someone's mum dying and getting end of life limits of care kind of thing with their daughters or sons, these are challenging conversations, and being able to kind of coordinate and orchestrate that without bringing too much of your own bias to the situation and just bring the medical opinion is really important. The next term was relief. Relief term in Australia is essentially when you plug I'm just thinking, like, the hospital is kind of like a sinking ship, just that it's always sinking, and that there's always a higher demand than there is supply. And in healthcare, you can always have infinite demand. If you add $1 billion to healthcare, there'll still be more demand of things to do, and you'll need another billion. So healthcare is kind of funny that way. There's no kind of way to really meet all your KPIs, key performance indices. So anyway, I'm just thinking that, like, relief term acts as a way to plug the holes in the ship to slow the sinking ship. So when a relief term, what you do as an intern is you're either covering the hospital out of hours, so doing night shifts, or doing kind of afternoon or evening shifts, or you fill in people who are on holidays shifts. So, for example, I did 2 weeks in gastroenterology because one of the residents was on holidays. And that was really good because I got exposure to gastroenterology, which I haven't otherwise done. The night shifts are also really important. People don't like night shifts. No one likes being awake all night. I've got a video on ways to kind of make it bearable and strategies to sleep well and survive them. And so you can check that video out. It's on my channel. But you're going to be doing nights as an intern, and it's really important that you find a way to make it work for you, because being tired and being an intern is a bad mix. You'll make stupid mistakes. And in terms of those terms getting harder and harder, relief term is still a little bit harder still, because you're a bit more independent. So when I was a relieving intern, I was one of 3 doctors covering the entire hospital. So I would have to see patients by myself and make decisions on their management by myself. But there still is a senior doctor if you need to talk to them, and you can always call the consultants on call if you need. So there is some support, but it's less than a day team. And so relief is a little bit harder than, I think, the kind of core medical or core surgical terms. And then finally, I'm now in the last term of internship, and that's emergency medicine. Emergency medicine, I think, is harder than relief, just because the pace, in my experience, is much higher. And I guess for me personally, it's correlated with spikes in COVID, which is another challenge again. So there's just a lot more cases, like there's a lot more presentations in the ED, and unfortunately much less staff because of the furloughed there's just so many people on that are furloughed because they have COVID or are close contacts with people who have COVID. So it's less staff and more patients. So it's a pretty headachy. It's a bit of a headache in terms of the pressure, but I've been really enjoying it. Personally, I think it's probably what I'll train in and what I'll apply for at least. And so I like ED a lot, but it's still a bit more challenging, and there's a bit more independence. Luckily, there's always consultants and registrars around that are very approachable, but you see the patient, review the patient, order investigations much more independently than you would in a ward team. Now, that's basically how my year has gone in terms of getting more and more difficult as I've grown in my skill set. To talk a little bit about, I guess, how I feel. And I thought it was an interesting thing to talk about because there's a very big difference in how I feel before a shift now compared to how I feel before a shift when I started. Now, when you start, everything's overwhelming, and I felt helpless, felt stupid, felt like I was a burden. And in a sense, you kind of are as a junior intern, and that's okay. As a medical student, you just don't get all the skills you need. I've been hunched forward. I'm going to lean back a little bit. As a medical student, you just can't get all the skills you need to get as an intern until you start working. And the big shift is really in responsibility. Medical students in Australia they feel like visitors, they feel like observers, and they have very little responsibility. Like, go take a blood test. Okay, well, if you can't get the blood test, you just get the intern to do it, right? Well, not when you're an intern, you can't do that as freely. Like, you really need to be able to get those blood tests. You need to kind of have that skill set down pat. You have more responsibility. Like, if someone's sick and you go and examine them, your assessment will dictate what happens to that person, because they won't get re-examined by someone more senior. Like, you need to be able to, and I'll talk about the tips in a second in terms of the key things you need to be able to do as an intern. But yeah, like, a lot more falls on your shoulders, and it's also very administratively heavy. So when you start off, when at the start of the year, the administration is it's all a headache, because if someone says, I want an aortogram, you're like, okay, I kind of understand that you want contrast in the aorta and you want a CT showing how the aorta looks, but you don't know exactly what to type in to the order forms to get an aortogram. So you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? I ask a nurse, they don't know. I ask a radiographer, they're not sure. So then you call a radiologist, and they like, this is wasting my time, blah blah blah, blah. And it's hard. But early in the year, people have more of a tolerance for that, because it's, they all know that you're new. And as the year progresses, you start to pick up on the kind of who to ask the right questions to and how to get more help. Because sometimes, your seniors don't know how to do intern jobs, like ordering a specific medication that you can't find on the electronic medical record, and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's all these little unique cases where you just can't get stuff done by yourself. So being able to ask for help is very important, but more importantly is knowing who to ask for help. And I feel as the year has gone forward, and now I'm much more confident in knowing who to ask for help. So yeah, in summary, for my year as an intern, it's gone remarkably well. And I just feel really grateful to have had such a lucky set of terms and such a wonderful set of people that I've worked with. And I feel much more confident going to work now, even in ED, which is, I say I feel more confident. I still get nervous before a shift, because it's kind of like a sports game. It's, if you're playing soccer before a game, even if you're a good soccer player, I'm sure you feel nervous. Same thing with an ED shift. It's all about performance. It's all about like how you're thinking and maybe not your reaction time, but your ability to process information in real time and think clearly through differentials and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so enough babbling on about me. Let's talk about you. You're a medical student. You're starting as an intern. Congratulations. Here are some tips that I think were really helpful for me starting as an intern. The first thing that's not really that often talked about is being comfortable. So I started off the internship with a pair of chinos, tucked in shirt, a pair of leather shoes, and it freaking sucked. Like, it was hot, and you're working 12-hour days sometimes. You don't want to be in a shirt for 12 hours. So luckily COVID has normalized this, but I started very early on just wearing scrubs. Scrubs are comfy and you can stay in them all day. They also have way more pockets, and you always need an extra pen for when your consultant bosses are around. You need to give them a pen. They like that. They're like an intern that can solve their problems quickly. So I think definitely wearing a pair of scrubs with a pair of runners is just the way to go. And you're quicker. You can jog to places if you need, and you got comfortable feet. So that's really, really important. The most important thing to have on your scrubs is not your stethoscope, but always carry your stethoscope around. If not, people will rip into you. It's a muesli bar. So keep a muesli bar in a pocket at all times and stay well nourished, stay healthy. So tip number 2 is all about health. The good thing about internship as opposed to medical school is when you clock off, you can really clock off. And that, as opposed to medical school, where when you leave university, you kind of clock on, you start your study. With internship, there's no mandatory studying. So you can kind of, things are at your own pace when you go home. And I think just having a good, you just need to be healthy this year. Food might be hard for you to cook every day. So I bulk cook on Sunday. I make 10 meals. So I think bulk cooking will be necessary if you're an intern, especially if you're organizing your own menu. If you cook for yourself, if you have someone cooking for you, that's amazing, and be grateful for that. Number 2 is drinking plenty of water. So you need a water bottle, you bring it to work. If you don't have a water bottle at work, you can pinch one of the water bottles for visitors or patients. You need to stay hydrated. You will think less clearly, you will be grumpy, you just won't be effective if you're thirsty. So frequently sipping waters, and always have a big drink of water before rounds and a big drink of water before assisting in a procedure. I've made a really stupid mistake once thinking that a procedure would be quick. It got complicated midway. I was really thirsty. I was dehydrated. I definitely could have had a vasovagal. I was very lucky not to have, and it was stupid of me, and I regret it. I still feel really cringy about how stupid that was because I was just scrubbing in, and I was like, man, I really need some water right now. I'm scrubbing in. I didn't know that an open prostatectomy took like 3 hours. I haven't done one before. I thought it was like a TERP. Anyway, it took a long time, and that was a close call in my books. So definitely drink plenty of water before procedures. So just be healthy. Try and do exercise when you can. If you're too time poor to do exercise, do opportunistic exercises. So taking the stairs, and that's another reason why you should wear scrubs, because when you wear scrubs and shoes and runners, you'll take the stairs way easier than if you're wearing like formal bloody boots that hurt when you're climbing stairs and aren't supportive on your feet. Like, wear runners and do the stairs, and the 10,000 steps you'll do in a day in a hospital will usually be pretty good exercise. So another important thing to do with your year is to reflect and have good social supports, and kind of be vulnerable and kind of debrief with people when you go through a bad day. Now, whether they need to be medical people or just close friends, even if they're not medical, there's no rules. I've heard people say that it's better to talk to medical people because they just get it. I've heard people that say you should talk to non-medical people because they are good at not normalizing the fact that you're seeing death every day, because that's not a normal thing to go through. You don't see death every day as an intern, like once a week or something. The point is, like, you're going to have bad days. You're going to see really intense stuff. I mean, I've seen thoracotomies with chests being like primed open like a clamshell, and then people doing cardiac massage, and people my age dying in front of me. It's all wild, and you're going to have a wild year, no doubt. So having people to kind of debrief with is very important. Personally, I've found my close friends to be really good. I've also found YouTube to be really good. It's a bit more iffy with YouTube. I have to be way more vague about the patient descriptions and stuff, because obviously I can't say anything that would identify a person, and it has to be much more about how I'm feeling. But anyway, reflective videos on YouTube have helped me. If you want to start your own YouTube channel, jump onto Discord. My links are everywhere on my videos and in the descriptions. So if you want to ask some tips on how to start your own YouTube channel, I would love to help. It's a wonderful thing, YouTube. The other thing is feeling overwhelmed. Like I've had, to be fully transparent, probably 6 times this year driving home, I've just kind of gone into tears, and not necessarily like sad or like bad tears. Like, and I don't feel bad when I'm tearing up. I just feel like overwhelmed because I've had a massive day full of, you're making 1,000 decisions in a shift, and sometimes, and you're multitasking often, which is bad, but it's the way that the healthcare system is. And I just find like you can't process any of the kind of stress that you're experiencing during the shift on shift, so you have to process it afterwards. And so sometimes I just drive home and I just go like, and it might just be a stupid song. Like the other day it was Ed Sheeran and Elton John's Merry Christmas, which by the way is such a good song. Love it. But yeah, it's a happy song with it, and it just like has a line where it's like, and let's acknowledge those who have gone, and it just, all the kind of emotions of all the people I just kind of came up, and I just felt really emotional. And it's nice, like that's life, like feeling emotions. That's when you feel most alive, in my opinion. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's something to be aware of. Like as a medical student, you get emotional, you get stressed from exams, but as an intern, it's a little bit different because it's not about getting a mark on a test. It's about, getting someone back home alive. So it's a different scale. Another tip is just get heaps of sleep and make sure you go to bed early. Like don't muck around, just have a good sleep routine, like pre-bed routine that gets you to sleep early. Take melatonin if you need it. Not healthcare advice, just look into it. But you need to sleep well so that you get to work early, so that you're logistically ahead of the game. You can run through the patient notes before you do the ward round, so you know where the issues are. I just think sleep's really important, and it's been really important in my year. Look, there's a billion other tips. We can do a live stream sometime with more tips. I guess the other thing I just want to say is that COVID is going to be a real part of your year in 2022. The good thing about COVID, in a sense, is that as an intern, there's only so much you need to know, and that's basically like, is someone sick or well? If they're short of breath, prone the crap out of them and give them like increase their oxygen delivery, whatever means necessary, and learn what you can give and what you can't give, because sometimes they don't let you give high flow nasal prongs in certain rooms or something, and you'll learn about all the different delivery of oxygen. Hopefully in your orientation they talk a lot about COVID. If someone's hypoxic, there's only like, you only really need to know like 3 or 4 medicines for COVID, but the most important is Dex and oxygen. Like so Dex, oxygen, and positioning are probably the 3 most important things to know. Just flip them on their belly, give them some Dex, and load them up with oxygen, and call for senior help. Like first thing you do is call for senior help, obviously. But it's going to be a very big part of your year. You're going to see a lot of COVID. You're going to get covered with it. Definitely get triple vaxxed as soon as possible. Wear your PPE. I see people with COVID every single day, and I haven't gotten it yet. So PPE works really well. Just keep loading your hands up with the hand sanitizer, keep washing everything, and learn the algorithm. At my hospital, there's like a 1 A4 piece of paper algorithm that tells you all the things you need to do. So you just tick those boxes, and it takes a lot of the kind of pressure off of you, because you're just completing like a set of tasks, essentially. The key thing to end this long ranty video on is the fact that you can always ask for help. And sometimes people will give you attitude. I've had consultants be really, really rude to me when I've asked them for advice or for help or whatever, and they put up a fight, and they make it like they put all this, it makes it really friction. Like there's a lot of friction to getting anything out of them. Fuck it. just you have a job to do, and that is asking for help. A key skill as an intern is to talk to people who don't want to talk to you, because they have their own workload and they don't want to kind of be bogged down with whatever you need. But you just got to learn how to do it. I know you're busy, I'm sorry, but I got to ask like this question, blah 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 blah. What do you think? You just do it. You just get it done. The most important tip for the whole video, the thing I wanted to end on, is the tip of being proactive. If you are a proactive intern, you will be loved by your team. It's hard at the start of the year because you don't know what to anticipate, but as you go through the year, you will start to see what needs to be done before people even think to ask you for them. So if you know someone's going to theatre, you need to collect a pink top group and hold for them, and then like you can save someone so much time, and you can improve the efficiency of the healthcare system by doing that. There's all these things, you know, like if you know someone's got a bad heart and short of breath, you're going to be ordering a chest x-ray. Just like you'll see these patterns, and you know someone needs bloods every day if they're unwell, blah blah blah. Like, just learn to see the patterns of different presentations and their admissions, and always just try and be proactive. It's hard because a lot of your energy gets sapped, but just try every single time you see a patient, be like, okay, well, what else do they need that I can help with? Like, sometimes it requires you taking a step back and just being like, okay, what is this admission? Okay, it's a pneumonia. Do they have the antibiotics? Yes. Do they have oxygen? No. Are they hypoxic? Yes, they're hypoxic. Let's give them some oxygen. Like, be proactive, be proactive, be proactive. Easier said than done, but you will learn over the year how to be more proactive. I can't kind of summarize it in a video. And that's all. That's all for this video. Thank you for tuning in. Share it with your other medical student friends or whatever if you like. If you enjoy the video, consider leaving it a like, consider subscribing to the channel, become a member if you want to see more stuff, or if you want to join in some streams. And I just wish you all an absolutely marvelous year. Ask any questions you want, and I'll make more videos for interns as the years go on. It's been a wild year, guys. Like, in 1 year's time, you will be a very different person to who you are today. For sure. And that's okay. Like, and that's, it's going to be, a lot of development's about to happen for you. So I'm excited for you. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all in the next video. Lots of love. Rock and roll.